On today's show, what's next for the Houston Rockets and Kevin Porter Jr. after KPJ's arrest in New York City early last week? Why have we not seen the NBA hand out a punishment yet? The Houston Rockets are reportedly looking to trade Kevin Porter Jr. What exactly would they be getting in a return for this, and why would a team even be remotely interested in trading for KPJ at this point? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's just $5 to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Right now, you can go take a look at the outright betting favorites for Super Bowl 58 after week 2 of NFL action. Kansas City Chiefs standing strong at plus 600 to win it all this season. The 49ers plus 700. Eagles at plus 750, and rounding at the top 5, you have the Dallas Cowboys at plus 850 to win the Super Bowl, and the Baltimore Ravens at plus 1,000. So for all those odds and more, be sure to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season strong. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And now it's me, Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, and on YouTube, just search Locked On Rockets to break down the situation currently going on with the Houston Rockets and their young guard, Kevin Porter Jr. So, Kevin Porter Jr. was arrested in New York City last Monday on charges of domestic violence, and the situation is really messed up on all fronts. These are incredibly serious allegations that he is currently faced with, and Adam Silver has commented on it, saying that the allegations are horrible, that he doesn't know anything more than the current reporting. And right now, I think before even getting into the basketball side of things, it's very important to remember that there is a victim here in Kaiser Gondrezick, former WNBA player, Kevin Porter Jr.'s partner, who is a victim in all of this. So thoughts go out to her family, and the victim in this situation before even beginning to remotely think about the basketball side of things. But for the Houston Rockets and for Kevin Porter Jr., there are going to be basketball ramifications from this situation. Now, having already dove into the logistics of exactly what went down over on Locked On Rockets, I won't revisit those because the case is incredibly sensitive. However, right now, it appears that Kevin Porter Jr.'s time with the Houston Rockets has come to an end. The only question remains whether or not he will be traded or eventually cut and waived from the team, because the wording in the most recent reporting by Shams Charania of The Athletic suggests that the Rockets are keeping him away from the team, and my understanding is that they have zero intentions of bringing him back to training camp or keeping him around the team at all in these coming days and weeks while the NBA is conducting their investigation. And there have been a lot of fans, and rightfully so, that have been upset, wondering why there hasn't been an immediate reaction by the Rockets as an organization to this situation. And it's because in situations like this, NBA teams, their hands are tied. The NBA handles situations like this. The Rockets are conducting their own internal investigation as to what happened. The NBA is also conducting their investigation, but the Rockets cannot unilaterally dole out punishment to Kevin Porter Jr. in the form of cutting him, distancing. They're already distancing themselves as an organization. They've cleared out their social media history of anything to do with Kevin Porter Jr. So you're seeing the steps being taken from the organization to kind of rectify things and move on from him as a player. But right now, nothing can happen until the NBA concludes their investigation. But the Houston Rockets are attempting to try and trade Kevin Porter Jr. to an interested team. The reason being that the way Kevin Porter Jr.'s contract was structured when he signed his rookie scale extension with the Houston Rockets is it has a ton of basically bailout options in the contract, and he's only guaranteed, even though he signed a 4-year deal, he's only guaranteed the very first year of his contract this season, worth just under $16 million. So the Rockets are effectively looking to trade Kevin Porter Jr. and future draft capital in order to receive back a player who can ideally be a contributing member of the rotation for this team this season right now. The reason being, this is a team with a new head coach in Ime Udoka, a team that just shelled out a lot of money this offseason signing Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks. They want to be competitive again this year. And Kevin Porter Jr., despite the fact that he was a polarizing figure amongst Rockets fans for the better part of the last 2 seasons, he was going to be an important part of what this team was trying to accomplish, transitioning into what was going to be a 6-man role off the Rockets bench. Likely their lead guard off their bench, their primary scorer, primary offensive weapon, and they no longer have that piece. So rather than having to rely on increased minutes for rookies in Amin Thompson and possibly Cam Whitmore, they're likely looking to add a veteran piece that can hopefully absorb or completely replace some of those minutes that they were expecting to give to Kevin Porter Jr. Now, it's important to understand here that while the NBA is still conducting their investigation and no teams can hand out a punishment to Kevin Porter Jr. or suspend him or cut him because of the allegations, his contract is still a tradable NBA asset. And the Rockets are just doing their due diligence in trying to see if there's a trade partner out there, ideally a team that is maybe suffering from some cap salary implications that could utilize the expiring contract of Kevin Porter Jr. Maybe the Rockets would take back a deal that isn't quite as favorable as long as the player, again, is a decent rotation player. And effectively, whichever team, if there is a team out there that would be interested in acquiring Kevin Porter Jr., they wouldn't be acquiring Kevin Porter Jr., the player. The understanding is likely that Kevin Porter Jr.'s career, not only with the Rockets, is potentially coming to an end, but that his NBA career is likely in jeopardy and may also be coming to an end. Whatever team would be trading for Kevin Porter Jr. would be trading for him with the intentions of waiving him immediately. They're essentially only using his salary as a vehicle to acquire another player. And it's also important to understand that from a team building and roster construction standpoint, Kevin Porter Jr. is realistically the only movable mid-tier salary that the Houston Rockets have. So if they were to simply just cut him, waive him, they then no longer have that salary in order to potentially trade further down the line. So not only is it important for the Houston Rockets to be able to get back potentially a player who can be a contributing member of this team this season, it's also important to keep that salary slot alive for future trades. That way, if there is a disgruntled player mid-season who wants to be traded, the Rockets could be in a position to package a couple different salaries together to make a move for said player. And that was definitely one of the, I think, goals of that contract for Kevin Porter Jr. that the Rockets had in mind when they originally constructed it, was having that mid-tier salary, having those fail-safes throughout the contract in order to be able to really pull the plug at any point, kind of turning it into an expiring deal almost whenever they want to, in order to have financial flexibility from a roster construction standpoint. But it's also worth highlighting here that Kevin Porter Jr. has been a player who's had a history that has followed him, where he's had a number of incidents off the court dating back to his days at USC in college, his days with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the reason that the Houston Rockets got him for effectively nothing in the first place. And when you look back at whether or not the Rockets should have given him this contract at all, it shouldn't have happened. The Rockets should have never extended Kevin Porter Jr. This was a guy with history of time and time again making the wrong decision, and yet as an organization, they tried their best to give him all the support in the world that they could give him. This was a guy who said that the Houston Rockets organization saved his life when he made it to Houston and had his first official media day in Houston after spending a half season with the Rockets coming over from the Cleveland Cavaliers. And despite all of that, all the support systems in place, yet again, another off-the-court incident, this one probably being the worst one, potentially being the worst one of any off-the-court incident that we know about that has been reported to this point. And when you look at the history that has followed him, it is really concerning that the Rockets thought it was a good idea to give him the contract in the first place. And you even look at how the contract was structured. They structured the deal because they didn't exactly have a lot of confidence in his ability to not have issues off the court. That's why all the fail-safes were built into the deal. So the Rockets from here are effectively moving on from Kevin Porter Jr. He is no longer going to be a part of the plans for the future for the Houston Rockets. The only question is whether or not they'll be able to get back something of value for him, another player that they can plug into the rotation, or at least a returning salary so that they can keep that salary slot alive for future roster moves and flexibility. And ultimately, how will the NBA decide to come down on Kevin Porter Jr. with their investigation and their punishment? Given the amount of flack that the NBA got after the Miles Bridges situation, I think there's an expectation that the NBA may bring down the book on Kevin Porter Jr. to potentially make an example of him, potentially using the morality clause in the CBA to maybe even void his contract should the investigation provide enough evidence that they deem that necessary to really make an example that the NBA needs to have a stance of no tolerance towards domestic violence for its players, for anybody in the association, in this league. So we'll have you covered for all of that and the future situation regarding the Houston Rockets and Kevin Porter Jr. all over at Locked On Rockets.